Recording in progress.
That sounds like Siri backing up and telling me that we have episode 2
Episode 2
of this is where you play the jingle.
Oh. TV, it's all we've got. I don't know.
Good.
I'll make something up.
That's good. It'll be seamless.
Seamless.
Hello, daughter.
Which is what we go for. Hi, Dad.
Should we explain to people who don't know what this is about?
Yeah, I think definitely. If this is the first time that you're tuning in, you might want to know what the hell we're doing here. So this podcast is called TV. It's all we've got. And it is something that my father, George Tanikian, and myself take the time to challenge each other to watch a TV show.
Shoot the breeze during lockdown.
Yeah. And we basically just talk about how we feel the show is, what our thoughts are about it, where we think it might be going, if it's not a finished, finalized season, and then kind of talk about us as well in the meantime, in the process. And
in the best light, the beautiful bit about hopefully this podcast is that it not only throws a little shade or a little light on father and daughter, but it also gives you an idea that we actually entertain ourselves by watching some terrific TV. And it's been a bit of a glue that's held us together for an awful long time. And
probably too long.
I beg your pardon.
Well, longer than we'd care to admit, I think.
No, I'm happy to admit, from the very first movie, from the very first show, we've been bitten by the bug.
Yeah.
You'd think by now there'd be a vaccine for it, wouldn't you?
I know.
Oh, that's a dirty word.
Instead, they just keep making more streaming services, which take all my money.
By the way, we should also ground this program properly. I'm in Victoria. You're in?
Yes, Sydney.
New South Wales.
Well, New South Wales.
Yes.
Specifically Sydney.
It's a bit of fun. It's a bit of therapy. It's also an opportunity to showcase some terrific television. And in future episodes, we intend to expand this from not only just television, but onto places as exciting as the movie screen. So the silver screen. Are you doing all the sound effects?
Yes. Okay. I can't add them in post. I don't know how.
Well, another thing to learn in lockdown. You see, lockdown has many good uses if only you focus on finding a good use for it, right?
Yeah.
There are an awful lot of people, we should explain, around the world and across Australia who are currently struggling. In Victoria, I think it's about 217 days in totality since last year. That's an inordinate amount of time. And there are so many people that are yearning for the day when they can open the door and leave their home, leave their city, leave their state, leave their country and go and have a bit of a holiday. Now, how far away that is, we don't know. All we're trying to do is tell you to watch a particular show if you have an inkling. We started this podcast last week with an extraordinary up-tempo twosome.
I think that's the key word there, up-tempo.
It was. You actually asked me to be seriously excited about a thing called Schmigadoon. And I looked at you twice and I said, what in heaven's name is that? And then I decided, okay, I'll take up your challenge, or I'll take up the responsibility of checking it out. And I really enjoyed it. Took me a moment or two to get into it. And then I realized it was beautifully made. It was paying homage to another time and another place, the silver screen and the great musicals of the 40s and 50s in America. And this is a new interpretation, which I thought was really exciting. And what I asked you to look at and take in, and you, of course, were so excited when I said to you, check out
Ted Lasso.
And what did you find out?
It was great. There wasn't a lot of football in there, which is pretty much the main pull, but it was really, really great. I
which brings us
really enjoyed it.
which there you go. Which brings us to week 2 podcast. What was the dare that you posed or said to me last week that I should take up?
Okay, so I told you to watch Mr.Corman, which
And
is another show on Apple.
And in retaliation, I said,
you said that I would watch Physical, which is also on Apple Plus TV. Okay, can I just preface this by saying,
yes, I know where
I watched the trailer for Mr.Corman and I loved it. I thought, oh my gosh, it seems so sweet, like this quirky, funny comedy. He has, this guy has some issues, which is fine, don't we all? And I thought, yeah, I watched the first episode and I'm like, okay, this is kind of weird, but I can get into it.
Well, after all, what can a grade 5 teacher get into trouble doing?
Well, exactly.
And the answer was plenty.
So much.
I know.
And, I after watch, because I actually rewatched the first episode again because
it was so
I
clear
wanted
the first time.
Because I wanted to make sure that I was watching the same show in episode 5.
Got it.
Because it is quite dark. He is a primary school teacher who is currently dealing with bouts of anxiety and probably a little bit of depression as well. So trigger warning, if you do want to watch Mr.Corman.
If you watch
it
Mr.
is a
Corman,
little...
Yeah, say it.
It is a bit much. It is confronting. I know for myself, I have depression and anxiety. Watching it at times, I was holding my breath. So I think if you are that way inclined, just go into it with that knowledge. I didn't really know that going into it.
I was going to say, it's interesting to hear you talk about it like that, and that you were feeling an anxiety welling up inside you. I didn't get that response out of it. For me, it was a bit of a really slow burn. I too, though, was wowed by the wonderful promo
Joseph Gordon-Levitt
that does the trailer, because it was like, hey, how exciting is this? I like the guy as an actor. I've watched a lot of the product that he's been involved in. I thought this can't be all bad. It's got to be good. The trailer's very good, and after all, he produced it. And
he wrote it, directed it, starred in it, everything.
Maybe he did one or two things too many in this series.
Maybe.
But then again, maybe it wouldn't have been made if he hadn't put his hand up to do all those little menial tasks, which at the end of the day present us with an interesting show. Not quite a Ted Lasso, definitely not a Schmigadoon. All that. There is a musical
there's a musical
segment
scene in it.
But I'm still spaced out. I'm still wondering, should I have been taking something at the time, purely medicinal, of course, to help me with it, or a cup of tea? No.
I still...
And then I should add, just when I thought I was getting over Mr. Corman, because it's so slow, or it seemed to me, you were getting really anxious. I was wondering, when is something going to happen, right?
Yeah.
Then Physical. Then I went to my task to watch Physical. And I thought to myself, the one redeeming feature about it, other than Rose Byrne, who I think is amazing, it's truly representative of that era. And I'm going to say this to you now, Lauren. You were born in 85.
I know.
You have no idea about the 80s. It was a pretty good representation.
I know. And that explains why so many of myself and my friends have as many mental health issues as we do.
That's very
because clearly
well
it was
put.
Something that was never addressed then.
No, the whole
trigger
world
warning.
The
Again,
world had a very different chore and responsibility
in
the 80s.
Yeah. And so Physical does deal with binge eating and purging. So if that is a hard subject for you to watch, then this might not be the show for you.
Yeah.
Because it is featured in every episode.
And the other thing that is really interesting is how she wanders from one addiction to another.
Yeah, she almost replaces
the eating and the purging with the physical, which is the name of the show.
Physical.
Yeah, exactly right.
And so, again, we watched the trailer and terrific. It kind of gave a hint to binge eating, that was something that she was struggling with. I guess what I wasn't expecting was the running commentary that was in her head majority of the time. I do have a binge eating disorder, so I get it.
So did Lady Diana. In there.
Yeah, so it's constant, but to see it on screen is quite something else, because she's really, I don't know if either of these lead characters, like Josh Corman or, oh gosh, what's her name in
the
Physical
character.
Yeah,
is it? Oh, I'm sorry. I was so distracted by the physicality, and
you were so distracted by her.
Yes. And the music.
Oh my gosh! Well, the music was great, actually.
Well, I was going to say you wouldn't remember any of it. You were all of.
I mean, her hair just the hair in its own.
Excuse me. You ask your mother about her hair.
Yeah. So Sheila is her name. So we have Josh Corman in Mr.Corman, and we have Sheila Rubin in Physical. Neither of them are really likable characters, which is so interesting.
I was just going to say, the thing that fascinated me was the way that you took to it, or took to both of them. You see these as important programs, important series, because they highlight some of the great challenges that face so many of us in the marketplace. And, and we're talking children, teenagers, and even adults, right? So these have been subjects that have been buried and hidden behind closed doors. And you said to me you were pleased in a way that there was a genuine attempt, it seems to us, that these ideas and these concepts people were trying hard to destigmatize them. Yeah. So if that is indeed the case, and this emerges from these two programs, that we take away the stigma from mental health issues, from anxiety, depression, and from eating disorders and image challenges that face so many of our younger people, then it's something good to come out of two shows that the promo builders made into hits. Whether they do hit your bell and strike a chord will depend very much on your own personal experience. They're well made. The Physical reflects on a different time and a different place. And Lauren,
costumes are incredible.
And I can tell you, what, you've been looking in your mother's wardrobe, have you?
She didn't keep anything. It's all gone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but look, it's pretty hard to make Rose Byrne look ugly. And I don't think
now that you put it that way, I'm with you.
They just kind of went, nah, we can't make her ugly. We're not going to try.
Mind you, there is a moment, and it's going to be the only moment I'll describe. Yeah. And it's to do with a party. And it's about the actions of Rose Byrne, who is the actress who plays this character who has her own challenges with bulimia and other things. And she somehow walks into a bathroom holding a cake, a quite big cake, and then
a sheet of cake, I believe is what it's called.
And then proceeds to demolish it in the bathroom while the door is locked.
With hands, just
so there's some interesting, so there are images that will linger with you forever. Some you'll never be able to purge. some will never be able to purge, no matter how hard you try.
I didn't realize this. Mr. Corman was actually filmed just before the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
So then they filmed, I think they said they filmed the first 7 episodes and they got shut down. So we've only seen the first 5 so far here in Australia. So it'll be interesting to see how the rest of it plays out, because I think that when you introduce the pandemic side of things, it might pick up a little bit more. But
what, they wear masks?
Yes. Let me tell you, if I had a roommate that would lie on me like an anxiety blanket, like his roommate does in that show, I think I'd be very happy.
It's interesting you say that the show was disrupted. So much of the world has been disrupted during this past 18 months, this nearly 2 years. And it tests us all. It takes a great deal of focus. It takes a great deal of willpower to stay, as they say, confident, calm, and above all, keen on what comes tomorrow, because a lot of people are being challenged by it in a fashion that they haven't seen for ever before. A little bit of perspective goes an awful long way, but when you're in it, as you've told me before, Lauren, and it's harder to take in or watch something when there's a degree of anxiety or depression. And you tell me that for you, especially watching Mr. Corman, made you anxious at times. I didn't feel that anxiety, but I felt other things watching the show. And I've got to say that it seemed to me like I just wanted something to happen in it. You know? Again, being a guy who's grown up on television and great television product, and then working in the business for the better part of 40 odd years, you want action, you want things to be going on, and this takes such a long time.
It does take a long time to get there, doesn't it?
To move, yeah, and it's awkward. It's well done in so many different ways. But when you consider the first 2 uplifting shows in our first podcast, and then we compare these 2 shows, you've got to be positive in that they do a tremendous job of actually shining a light on some really awkward and very difficult subjects. And on that level, I think we've got to give them something positive. And,
absolutely.
And then warn people it's at your and
do you know
insistence. What?
So Mr. Corman doesn't have anything, doesn't have a warning at the beginning of the show, but Physical does.
Yes, it does.
So I found that very interesting, because I would think that if I was feeling slightly anxious because of the way it was filmed, you know, the camera is kind of always shaking. If I was feeling anxious, then I'm sure other people would too. And
there's only 2 times I've been anxious watching a movie or a show.
Oh, I thought you would just say sport.
Oh, please don't bring that up. It's been painful. My New York Yankees, thank goodness they won this morning. Anyway, I'm off topic. Just going back, Game of Thrones, when Jon Snow, in the Battle of the Bastards, falls in, you know, with all these bodies on top of him, I almost couldn't breathe. Yeah. And then
I was suffocated at that point.
I kept thinking to myself, why am I feeling suffocated? And then my response was, because it's been brilliantly produced. The storyline, you love the character, you're immersed in the character, and you feel the anxiety. So if you're feeling that anxiety, I'm suggesting that maybe you were getting into the show and it was talking to you. And I think this is something we're too quick to dismiss. If you do feel something, and we're all different, and you and I have talked about this before, when we walk into a cinema or when we turn on a show to see, the sum of our life experiences will help us either travel with that show or that movie, and it'll be a very different journey for me, and it'll be a very different journey for you. And that's why I get excited when we come out of a movie and we've enjoyed something together. because it's touched so many nuanced things, and we've shared it in a. And it's not the same experience, but we've loved it so much because of the great quality it's contained. You sit there and you go, "Hey, that was good." Yeah, and I remember feeling that when I came out of Shrek with you. You were all of about 9 or 10. Is that right?
Gosh, it seems like forever ago. Yeah, that sounds about right, actually.
Yeah.
But you were actually saying something very interesting the other day.
Which was?
Which was that you have spent so many years working in news and reporting on the latest news stories that cinema, TV is a way for you to escape all the reality that is happening in front of you.
Yeah.
And I found that so fascinating because you said you watch 3 types, right?
Yeah, so you were paying attention.
I was. I might have ADHD, but I definitely try and pay attention. So I'm not going to get all of them now. I'm going to get in trouble. So that's why you enjoy sport.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's why you enjoy science fiction.
Yes.
And what was the third one?
Think about it.
Oh, crap. Oh, like action movies.
No. Fantasy.
Oh, fantasy. But doesn't that fall under sci-fi fantasy? Well, I guess they're different.
Fantasy for me was Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones. Yeah, it's different.
George R.R. Martin created a different time and a different place that never existed. Okay? He created a cast of characters that only emerged from his brain, from his mind, right? And he's created a world and a color and a series of stories that fascinated the best part of the world television audience on HBO for about a good 10 years. It was one of towards the end, it was one of the most expensive television shows to be made, and it's still to this day resonates. And yet, for me, I didn't have to worry about it. I just jumped straight in and believed everything. Of course, I knew it was fantasy, but I believed there were dragons, right?
Yeah.
I'd
love to believe that too.
No. What I'm saying is I completely immersed myself in fantasy. I understood
in the world.
Yeah. Exactly. I didn't have to worry over my shoulder whether it was a dragon or not. I knew it was. No.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm getting at. The science fiction, whether it's 30,000 years in ahead of time or 30,000 years in the past, you're right. It's whatever it was. I love that. Whether it's Star Trek, the movie, or whether it's Star Wars, I love that. I don't have to worry about reality. And reality for me is a little bit of physical and a little bit of Mr.Corman, because they talk about the subjects that affect people today, every day. Yeah. And that's why I struggle with both of them, because they're not the sort of programs I would choose. But because of this podcast, because you asked me, I thought, okay, I'll give it a go.
Give it a whirl.
I'll give it a whirl. So again, we live and we learn. I learned a lot more about those shows from you than I did from actually watching them, if you know what I mean. Because I was
understand
listening back to your feedback. I sat there and I thought, I assumed there. I shouldn't have. I should have focused a little bit harder. That was really interesting. Really interesting. So there you go, Mr.Corman.
And Physical.
And Physical, 2 different shows, again on Apple Plus. And I think what we need to do now for our podcast is move away from
something so dark.
Some produced television to some movies.
Okay.
So what are we going to see? What do you think I want to see in next week's episode?
Well, something light-ish, I think. Something. So with my anxiety, I have been watching a lot of the same TV shows and movies to kind of put me at ease.
Is that why musicals really resonate with you?
Yes. Yeah. Because even if I just have it on in the background, I know the lyrics. I can sing along as I'm doing my work, or if I'm cleaning the apartment, I can just have that on, and it's kind of a comfort for me.
Yeah. It's an accompaniment.
It's an accompaniment. And I'm living alone in lockdown. So one of the movies that I've had on repeat, and I don't know if you've seen this movie or not, but I want you to watch it. Pitch Perfect.
Oh, Pitch Perfect.
Have you seen it?
No. No. But I will watch Pitch Perfect if you watch the new Mark Wahlberg science fiction movie called Infinite. Yeah.
Okay.
It's on Paramount Plus.
Oh, okay.
Paramount
I have to subscribe for another one. Okay,
Paramount
fine.
Plus,
I'll get
which
it.
is the new Channel 10 streaming service, which has a whole bunch of things on it. It has one of my favorite police shows called Blue Bloods.
Do you know your mother loves that show?
There you go.
I don't know if she understands what's going on, but she watches
do not say
all
that.
the time.
Do not say that about your grandmother. She understands every drama that's ever been made, from Days of Our Lives to Blue Bloods.
She understands Bold and Beautiful. That's better.
No, she actually can follow, and she immerses herself. And of course, these days, after the passing of Grandpa, it's a great salve for her, as it must be for a great many people. It's a great bit of company. And maybe, like your musicals, mums or grandmas love or appreciation of Blue Bloods and shows of that ilk make her feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Do you think that's possible?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Either that or she just doesn't know how to change a channel.
I'm thinking we're actually learning more about each other during these podcasts than we are about watching any television series or any movies. What do you think?
Yeah, that's true. That's probably true, which is nice.
It is nice. After all, what is this show again called?
TV. It's all we've got.
I can't wait for you to drop in that little jingle. Do it again.
I know. I'm looking forward to creating something.
Okay. So until next week, when you can join us again on this particular site for TV is all we've got. I leave you, Lauren, with you've got to watch Infinite, the new Mark Wahlberg movie on Paramount Plus, and I'm going to watch Pitch
Perfect.
Pitch Perfect. Okay.
Which you can find on Netflix, and I think on Amazon as well. But there
you go.
Netflix is fine.
Okay, done.
Or I can always lend you the video.
Until next week. See you, darling.
Yes. Until then. Bye, Dad. Love you.
Love you too.